Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Whiskey and Eat, spirited conversations with interesting people. I'm your host, Kristopher Hart, and today we talk about rye. Again, rye. Sagamore Spirit is a new rye to the Houston market. It's been around for quite some time, last few years over in Baltimore, Maryland. It has been a massive success there. They source a lot of their whiskey and have been from MGP, but have also been distilling their own and laying it down for maturing. As we know, we've openly talked about how sourcing is a very fundamental part of a new distillery startup and how important it is to actually get revenue going, to kind of build your farm and your rick houses and distill your own spirit and your own product. They're transparent about it. I don't have any issue with them whatsoever, and was very, very, very happy to have the president of the company here today. In 2013, Brian Treacy became the president of Sagamore Spirit, and since their launch in 2016, the brand has exploded. They've become one of the best-selling ryes in the Maryland market. I'm really happy to have them here in Houston and Texas, and they're definitely a budding brand here. But they're really primed for success. This cask strength is absolutely phenomenal, and this port finish is just. We were very happy with this. We spent a lot of time with all four spirits. We were very pleased with all four. I'm also joined by my friend Shawn Jackson, who was here. Last time he was here with Dave Pickerel. Shawn is a contributor to Bourbon and Banter. He's also a longtime member of the Houston Bourbon Society and the Bourbon Hounds of Houston. He's got a long history in buying barrels, picking barrels. The guy knows his whiskey. So I was really happy to have him back on the show to contribute to this conversation. I don't know if I've said this on air before, but I really love the dynamic of a three-person conversation when we do these shows. So between Brian and Shawn, I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. So without further ado, let me just mention the Houston Whiskey Social tickets are on sale now. We immediately sold out of the Pappy Van Winkle tickets. We're almost sold out of the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection tickets. Definitely check out the event at HoustonWhiskeySocial.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. Check the event out. The event is the state's largest and craziest whiskey festival statewide. I mean, it's just a phenomenal event. So I kind of bother Brian a little bit during the show and kind of convince him to come up back in March when it hits. So we've moved the event out of the summer, out of the heat. It is now March 30th. It's a Saturday, and it is I couldn't be more excited. So I say that a lot. I kind of beat that to death. What's another word for I couldn't be more excited? I'm very ecstatic. So without further ado, Brian Treacy, the president of Sagamore Spirits, and Shawn Jackson, my friend from Bourbon and Banter. Cheers. Let's definitely start with something to drink. So I've kind of played around. I told you Tim dropped these off. I think Monday or Tuesday. He drove all the way from Beaumont. So going back to how I know Tim. So I run a whiskey festival here. Yeah. And I met Tim at one of these events. I believe at the Extravaganza. He's one of the nicest. In this industry, you talk to a lot of reps. He just seems like a nice guy, like a good old, not a good old boy just like a easygoing. I mean, he could be a complete stress ball. I have no idea.
No, he's not. I mean, he's like, he's a competitor. I mean, he loves what he does for a living, and he's really good at it. And so, I mean, we're lucky to have him, and we're lucky to work with him every single day. But he's a go-getter. He's a self-starter. He's an entrepreneur. He likes building it. He likes competition. He likes to try and get the name out there, and he's doing a great job for us in Texas.
Yeah, we've had a good working relationship. We're even talking about potentially doing a barrel pick of the rye. But let's dive into it.
So with the 83?
Yeah, I think I always start with I think the lowest proof makes sense. And this, we refer to kind of as a little bit of our signature 83 proof. And for us, what we were really looking for, you don't see a lot of low ABV whiskeys, but what we were really looking for in this one was something that was very easy to sip, very approachable, yet still stood up in a cocktail. And so to us, that's what kind of a little bit of the Maryland style rye whiskeys were back in the day. That's our understanding. It's hard to find a lot of great documentation on it, but that's our understanding of it today.
So let's talk about the backstory there with Maryland distilling history. So you said that's what you guys believe to be the traditional style rye, and what does that mean to the traditional style rye?
Yeah, I mean, if I could even back it up just a little bit more, just to kind of tell folks a little bit about the great history we have is, if we were to take like everybody, Maryland did start off with rum, and then you have the Molasses Tax Act coming in 1733, and people were resourceful and kind of saying, I'm not going to support the British, and I'm going to move on. And the cover crop of rye worked out well with the tobacco fields and so forth. And so a lot of Scotch-Irish immigrants in the Baltimore area and Maryland area, and they were very resourceful folks. And so, and then you kind of fast forward it to 1910, and we had 44 licensed distilleries in Maryland, all making rye whiskey.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of distilleries back then. And we actually kept making it through Prohibition. That's why Maryland's called the Free State. And then as you kind of came out of Prohibition, two things happened. The war started, and 530 million gallons of ethanol were required to support the war. So half of that came from the beverage industry. And the agricultural acts that kind of subsidized corn drove the price way down on corn, but left rye kind of where it is today as an expensive grain. I mean, we pay 3 times as much for rye grain compared to corn. And I think back then people weren't necessarily brand builders. They were just resourceful people, and were just say, well, this is where my money is, and this is where I get my most bang for the buck. So I think eventually Maryland rye whiskey ended up having a little trouble recovering after that. But our understanding is Maryland was always a little bit sweeter version of rye whiskey, a little bit more approachable. So we distill 2 different mash bills. We distill 95% rye, 5% malted barley, which everybody's pretty darn familiar with. And then we distill one which we always call our barely legal rye, which is 52% rye, and the rest corn and malt. And we'll age them separately for about 4 to 5 years. And then we'll blend them together at usually about a 2-to-1 ratio, high to low. And then we proof everything using our limestone spring water from Sagamore Farm, which is where we get our name.
So we're going back to something you said. Now, my understanding was that you guys, which is very common, there's nothing wrong with it, you guys actually source quite a bit of product, but you said you also distill. Are you guys currently laying down? So what's currently out is... Good. What currently out is... sorry, let's try that again. Blah, blah, blah. What is currently out is sourced, but you guys are maturing and distill it right now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. We always like to refer to it actually as contract distilled, because we actually started in 2012, and we were lucky enough to team up eventually with Larry Ebersold, who was the master distiller at MGP for 35 years. And so everything we ended up getting from MGP was specific to our POs, and then the barrel shortage came along. We even had to get our own barrels, and it just kind of took over basically as much of the process as we could to own it all the way through. And so we never bought necessarily an aged barrel or anything like that. But yeah, like we knew it was a bad business plan to spend 4 years building a distillery, then 4 years aging whiskey, and then 8-9 years later sell our first bottle. So it's by that mentality, it's bad business to be a distiller at all. Like that's the thing that sucks about wanting to open a distillery is you come up with a mash bill, you wait 4 or 5 years, whatever. You don't know if it's any good. If it is good, then you wait a little longer and then sell it. If not, you start from scratch. So that's the whole problem with starting a distillation business, is trying to convince your investors just give me like 10 years and then you'll see your money. So I mean, it's not a bad business model, and you guys are, like you said, so you were originally buying distillate fresh, maturing it at Sagamore Farms, or maturing it in Maryland, and then now you're selling it. Is that Yeah, we left most of it in Indiana because, again, a capital perspective, it's easier to use their rick houses.
Sure.
And then we would bring it to Maryland, and we started bringing it to Maryland, and then we would bottle it and proof everything with the limestone spring water from the farm. And we've always bottled everything in Maryland, but while we were building out our distillery. And it was just the better route. And then we launched in 2016.
Okay.
And so we started laying whiskey down in 12 and launched finally in 16. So when you look at that, we've been doing this for a while, but as far as a consumer-facing brand product, we're pretty darn new. And meanwhile, we were running with trying to build out a distillery, getting TTB approval, finding the right locations. Everybody's kind of been through it. And then we finally opened up our distillery in early 2017. And so we've been laying down our own distillate ever since. Now it's not the distillate that's currently in the bottle.
Right. That's going to be a few more years.
That's $1 million question. So everyone's like, when? Like, we're anxious too, but we're not sure. But it's, we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. We've had some positive experiences with our tasting our whiskey that's been aging. So, but we want it to be a straight whiskey, so that's a minimum of 2. But
well, and you guys are actually doing pretty well. If I read correctly, Maryland number 1 selling rye in Maryland right now. Is that correct?
We're up there. I don't know if we're number 1. There's the one with a green label that does pretty well too.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But we're up there. Maryland has been very good to us. Baltimore, the Mid-Atlantic, people are very supportive. I think they see you trying to bring back a rich history of distilling that Maryland once had. It's exciting. We've created one more reason with the distillery and the visitor center and the tours. Hopefully add one more reason to come visit the great city of Baltimore. So we love it, and people have been really supportive.
Sure, and this is good. I'm definitely enjoying it. I always applaud brands that just. You mentioned earlier you don't see many low ABV spirits anymore. Yeah. Everyone is trying to put a little extra oomph in their bottle, and with that, usually an extra little oomph in markup. But any distillery that's out today that puts a little extra ABV, to me, that tells me that they're putting a little bit more extra in and making sure that flavor really comes through on the spirit, and that it's not too cut or cut down too much. So my hat's off to you for that, for sure. And I didn't do this earlier. It'll be in the intro, but I do want to say thank you so much for being here.
Brian, thank you very much.
Shawn, thanks for coming back. Last time Shawn was here, we had Dave Pickerel on. Rest in peace. And Shawn was free today, and I thought it would be real fun just to get back, with you and of course drink. So I'm always on board for that.
Well, I'm really liking this. It's very soft, like you were saying, and sweet, but it's also got a lot of that pepper spice, a nice herbal sort of floral note to it also. Which
it's very floral.
There's it's like it's hitting all the different.
I had a thought earlier that's not professional at all, but that old thing when you drink orange juice after you brush your teeth. I brushed my teeth before coming here, and it really complements the rye, like just that fresh minty, spearmint and rye. So just for the first pairing suggestion, brush your teeth before drinking. It's going to go really well.
So it's
together.
A good breakfast rye.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we were looking for. Is I wouldn't maybe not breakfast rye, but like I said, our first one we expected
Trademark.
it to be. A lot of people aren't very familiar with rye whiskey, and so we got a heavy lift of telling the story of Maryland, getting people. A lot of times I do a lot of tastings, and you're being that retailer, and they walk in, and you're like, hey, try a little rye, and they're like, ooh, I'm good.
Yeah.
And they kind of put that hand up. I'm like, the price is right. It doesn't cost you anything, and this rye is different. It's really, actually, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
The spectrum, I've gone through all of them, and they're all. It's a good hearty experience on the spectrum of what rye is.
Yeah.
You're right. Rye is making a massive comeback. It was really big in the early 1900s. Rye was America's spirit. I know bourbon gets credit for that now, but it's definitely coming through a research. Debatable, yeah.
Debatable.
Well, if
sure.
you talk to Joe Herron from Copper and Kings, he'll tell you that brandy was America's spirit. So
great.
it's a lot of barrel aged spirits have at one point or another been a real American trend, even vodka in the early 2000s. So, anyways, with that being said, this is delicious. I couldn't be happier with it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, a lot of people are always like, if you're really a big time whiskey drinker, that's why we make several different versions of our product, if you will, and different line extensions. We don't expect to make one one spirit for everybody. So this is a great intro. People newer to the category, looking for something easier to drink, a little bit more approachable, or want to make cocktails. We think that's exactly what Maryland style was, and this is what we put into the bottle all the time. And so it is different. And when people tell me it's different and they react, that's kind of what we were looking for, is that reaction.
Well, the word approachable, I think, is apropos. Soft, sweet. There was another one in there you guys said earlier. It reminds me of Alberta Dark Rye. Have you ever had the Beam product, Alberta Dark Batch? It reminds me of that, but a little bit more pure rye.
Yeah.
Alberta Dark Batch is a mix of Old Grandad bourbon, rye, and sherry. And it's a little bit more. I say the word adulterated, but not in a bad way, because I think it's great for $27. But it reminds me of that, but more rye focused.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you still get some rice, definitely like the classic baking spices out of this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
So that's exactly kind of like what our understanding, our take. Things weren't that well documented. From what we've spent a lot of time in the historical Maryland Historical Society and so forth, especially when you're doing something that the federal government's frowning upon, like distilling during Prohibition. You don't record a whole lot of it. So, you just talk to a lot of people, and this is what our understanding is of it and kind of our approach to it today.
I actually, the other night, I did the regular, the port, then the cask, and then I think the double oak. But it was with a cigar, so I always like to taste stuff. If my first experience with something is with a cigar, I like to come back to it with a clean mouth.
Yeah.
It smells great.
Can you tell? Do you have any indications so far how your own distillate's going to be different from what you're getting from Indiana?
Not too much. We're working with the same grain suppliers, so we're still working with. Although we have started working with local Maryland farmers too, on a separate project.
Same two mash bills?
Same two mash bills. On the Maryland project?
Yeah, well, the stuff you're laying down and distilling, are you distilling
the stuff that we're still laying down today in larger volumes, if you will, is still 95.5, and then the 52, 44, and the rest malt. And so it really, at the end of the day, but the stuff we're doing on the pot still, that's Maryland, 100% Maryland-made product, which is still years away. We're changing up the mash bills on that.
Tweaking a little bit.
Yeah, and so we're doing that just a little bit different, a little bit more malt into it. And but the main still, everything is consolidated. We get the same grain supplier, and we're pitching usually the same yeast for the most part. And so a lot of it is the same. The real difference is the flora and fauna, the bacteria that exists in their tanks that doesn't exist in our tanks yet. The flora and fauna of Maryland compared to there, and then our aging warehouses are kind of just metal siding versus the classic big stone houses that they have at Seagram. So you get that definitely different aging.
I think that's the way to do it, is to slowly work in your own distillate but still try to match the flavor profile, because that's no different than when a distillery switches to a no age stated whiskey.
Yeah.
Ardbeg or any bourbon distillery who traditionally went from an age statement to a non-age statement, they're trying to match as close as possible that flavor profile to what the brand is. Otherwise, the brand gets, and a lot of people fail at it.
It's tough.
But slowly working in your distillate and trying to match. We tried Farm Stock 2 on here. I was very surprised, and it's a brand that has been controversial at times.
Yeah.
The whole Farm Stock brand, because of that article that said it was going to be worth $10,000 a bottle or whatever. There was some guy that said it was going to be highly collectible in 10 years. And sure, it's going to be collectible, but
that doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah. And honestly, I really thoroughly enjoyed Farm Stock too. I was very impressed, and I think it may have been in that 15 to 20%, maybe 30% of their distillate at this time.
That's right. I think it was 2/3 not their own stuff.
Yeah,
I think I remember.
Yeah, and we both looked at each other like, this is surprising. So I think that's the way to do it. Slowly work in your distillate, especially with what you said. The bacteria in the stills is different. The aging process is different. Big stone dunnages or warehouses are a lot less temperature fluctuation versus metal siding like at Willet, where it's just, or a lot of Kentucky distillers have metal siding. So I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, you go. If you look at the guys loading up that barrel warehouse in July, and they get out there at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning if they can, and in a cooler full of Gatorades, and so because the top is 120, 122, and you're not getting that really at the old Seagram's type stone warehouses. So we like that idea, though.
How many floors are you?
We are 5.
5 floors. Wow.
Yeah.
How many rick houses do you have?
We have 2 and getting ready to start the 3rd.
Okay, and what's the size capacity we're talking about? How many are they holding?
They range from about 2,200 to 22,000.
Okay, yeah, that's why I asked, because I know I think
we've got one that's a little bit more of a showpiece, and then we have one that's very functional.
Yeah, 1792 I think is sitting on, is it 30,000 per warehouse?
Oh, in the palletized warehouses?
No. In the standard warehouse, yeah.
Oh, I don't
mean, when they
remember.
collapsed, I think they.
Oh, they did throw a number out there.
Yeah. A lot of people learned a lot about their warehouses then.
We build ours differently too. I mean, like the small one, it was built a little bit. The way they build them in Kentucky though is they literally build the racking system and then they skin them, right? And so the racking system is literally the structure. Yeah. So if you load it incorrectly on one side or you don't keep it balanced, it's
like an aircraft.
Yeah, it is, right? And they'll, if you don't have a full flight, they'll be like, "Can somebody sit back here, please?"
Yeah,
right?
Weight and balance is important.
Absolutely. And so we built them a little differently. The building is the structure, and then the racking's just inside. So it helps us a little bit. It's a little bit easier to manage from an inventory standpoint. Sure. But you really learn a lot about your barrel warehouses pretty quickly.
Are they all in Baltimore, or is some of them outside of town? Okay.
Yeah.
So walk us through the Double Oak.
Yeah. So the Double Oak is really exciting. So, we have 2 core products. We have our Signature 83, and we have our cask strength, and then we've kind of been having fun with a little bit of innovation through what we've been referring to as kind of our LTOs, limited time offerings. Last year we did something that was finished in some barrels we got from Portugal, some Muscatel barrels. That was really fun and exciting. And we also tried this Double Oak. And so we worked with a cooperage to do a wave stave barrel. So we cut grooves down the inside of the staves, get a lot more surface area. The whiskey makes a lot more contact with the actual barrel. But if you did a heavy char, you would just burn off all those grooves, and so or those waves. And so you do a heavy toast, light char 1. And so we'll blend our 2 straight rye whiskeys together, and then we'll put them in the second barrel for a second aging for about 6 or so months. And just enough to pick up, the toasting just gives enough exposure to additional wood sugars. Beautiful coloring, I think, as well on this, and really kind of gives it an interested toasted oakiness, almost like a caramel marshmallow. Really, it's very interesting to me. 96.6 proof, so it's got really kind of still nice rye spice to it as well. But this was supposed to be a one and done, but it got such high awards and so many people spoke so highly of it. It'll be kind of a regular thing for us, but allocated. So we'll fill the barrels once. We filled the barrels in January, and we dump them usually in the middle of the summer, and then we'll fill them again, and we just kind of rotate it. And so just to start at the bottom here, the normal white label, what's the typical MSRP that we expect to see from that? That's typically about $39.99. Okay, great price. And for the Sagamore Double Oak? Double Oak, $59.99. It's what we shoot for. We don't get to control it all, but that's what we ask for. We actually had a great episode with a distributor and I love making friends in this industry with folks who are just willing to be honest. We all have these conversations behind closed doors. Everyone's a little afraid of the TABC. I'm not,
But I'm just kidding. Please don't come to my festival. But it's nice to just have that candid conversation. And we had an episode where we talked about how allocations work, inducements, where a lot of distributors will kind of force a store to buy cases of crap they don't want so they can have the allocated stuff. And then, of course, pricing. And I think that's the one good thing that's come from – there's been a lot of great things that come from the online bourbon forums, but the average consumer is learning and kind of catching up to not necessarily be an expert, despite what many may think, compared to people who actually work in the industry. But there's a lot of consumer education where people understand – you can really spot the shady stores now. Mm-hmm. You know when they're full of it.
And then there's the public shaming of the shady stores as well.
Yeah. That's met with mixed feelings at times. Sure, yeah. I've always supported the idea of public shaming, but not in the sense of like this is a shitty person, that's a shitty store. You may want to write those words down, but just to basically. I'm all about transparency. The guy that asked earlier today about Msrp Lee, he goes, "Is $50 ridiculous?" And then one guy kind of explains, "Well, I said it was a 100% markup. I mean, they're definitely making a huge margin on it, but the store may have also been forced to buy a bunch of products that they didn't want, so he's trying to make it up on the back end, or the front end." But I forgot where I was going with this. But as far as pricing, you mentioned that you don't always have control over that. There's Balcony suffers from that too, where they're limited editions certain times of the year. Do you guys release that throughout the year, or just one time a year?
We bottle it once a year, so when it's gone, it's gone. But we try to manage it a little bit on markets where we can.
Yeah, one of the complaints Balcony's had when they were on is stores they know that it's not going to be out in the fall, so. They'll hike up the prices until the new batch gets in, and then they hope to make a little bit more on it.
We've never seen that. We hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I think people, especially, we're so new to Texas, I don't think people know that much yet. So we're fortunate enough. I mean, our goal is to try and, we want people to try our whiskeys. We try and price them as competitively as we can. We don't have the scales that some people have, or the ways to offset something by having a very large portfolio and make up margin other places. But we try to be as competitive as we can, because we understand, I shop all the time. Price point, is a real thing,
Well, and it's not unreasonable. Value. I mean, both of those prices are, I would say, well within reason and average, if not below average, for some sourced whiskey right now is going through a huge price hike for a lot of brands.
Yeah, I mean, the double oak, you got 2 barrels involved, 2 new barrels. So right, sure. So that's and then you got additional labor. So you fill the barrels once, pull them off, put them on a rack, pull them back off the rack, and we do 2 barrels, obviously because of the blend. And then you make the blend in the tanks, and then you fill the next barrels, and you put them back on the rack, and then you pull them back off the rack.
Sure,
and,
sure.
So it's just, but
it's still not a bad price.
Not a bad price, yeah. Right?
I mean, it's extremely reasonable.
Yeah.
I used to give Whiskey Pig a little bit of a hard time because of their $70 price tag for their 10-year-old whiskey, and now, there's a lot of like Kentucky Owl, where you're getting a similar age statement for nearly twice the price. So. No complaints here.
What'd you guys think of the double up?
I liked it. The nose on it was great. I really, really enjoyed the nose.
Yeah, the toasted oak is really dominant. It really is way out front.
Yeah.
You can get just like a little bit of that sort of MGP herbal spicy rye.
Is it MGP that always gets the dill accusation?
Yeah.
See, I've never picked up a dill note on.
Yeah, I haven't got any dill from these. And then same with the palate. The palate for me is all that caramel and toasted oak, and then the finish, the spice starts to come out, and that the oak really tapers quickly, and then you get the long tingle of the.
You do get a nice long tingle, yeah, absolutely. No, it's a fun one. We love it. You don't see too many double oak rye whiskeys out on the market. The wave stave barrel is really kind of interesting too, just to getting that much more contact.
That's a lot of work as well. So I don't know how they do that. I'm sure it's machined, but it's still.
Yeah.
I'd imagine cutting grooves into
really specialized equipment.
Groovy whiskey.
Please don't release a. Ardbeg did it, and it about killed me.
That was really popular, though, wasn't it?
I I don't think it was as popular as some past releases. I think it was. I liked it. The whiskey itself was great. It was better than some recent past releases, but the groovy thing kind of threw some people off.
Yeah.
So I love a whiskey that you can sit with for a while. I've said this before. I wasn't a huge fan of the Bald Monk, the first one, but we took it to Tennessee with us. Not Bald Monk, Old Baldy, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
We took it to Tennessee with us to do a Jack Daniel's pick in January or December of last year. And it was like 8 of us, and we just sat one night. We didn't have many options, so there was like 10 of us. We just drank through that. We spent that whole night playing pool and visiting with each other and just focused on one bottle of whiskey. And it's not very often we do that because we're so used to the bottle share environment now where everyone brings 10 bottles and everyone kind of tastes a little bit of, So this reminds me of the way the weather is right now in Houston. This would be so much fun around a campfire and just kind of cozied up, drinking away.
Yeah, our cask strength is it has a lot of strong followers, very loyal followers to the cask strength, and it's the same blend as the 83. It's just a splash of our limestone spring water, just a splash to kind of open it up a little bit, and that's it. But totally different experience. We average probably about 113 proof on this, but really different outcome. I mean, just really kind of got that classic black pepper spice. Really nice long finish.
Still don't pick up any dill.
And at the same time, because I think that balance of the low rye, dangerously easy to drink, doesn't necessarily drink like 113 proof rye whiskey, in my opinion.
I think it's good at a 113. I think there's some whiskeys with that pepper spice note that at the 120, 130 range is just too much. There's a lot of sweetness there at 113. I'm very happy with that. What's the MSRP on this?
69.
That's pretty good.
So, double gold in San Francisco. So,
yeah, I would definitely put this up against a lot of ryes in that same price range.
Well, I don't know that we've talked much about Sagamore on the show yet, but it is very new to market.
Yeah.
And I don't know what all Tim has explained as to the local scene here, but it's pretty massive comparatively. It's the largest single market kind of, not even just HBS, all of the little spin-offs and side groups, and the Beaumont group is doing fantastic things now. But you basically have this cluster of Facebook groups of not your average consumer. These people are buying, I always use as an example that the average consumer maybe buys 1 to 2 bottles a month. I would argue that the average active member in the local scene, regardless of what group it is probably buying at least a case a month of things, if not more.
I don't know if I fully understand the scene down here, but I know it's different than almost anywhere else I've ever been. It's pretty impressive. I was just at a retailer before I came here, and I was
Which retailer?
Premier.
Okay, yeah. Siraj. Yeah.
I just saw
Very
Siraj,
nice guy.
a couple days ago.
Extremely nice guy. And
unbelievably
massive
nice.
man.
Yes.
Massive man. Every time I see him, it's a little intimidating, and I'm 6'4".
Yeah, I'm 5'8", but couldn't have been nicer.
Super nice.
And,
And his store has one hell of a selection.
beautiful store. And 2 guys came walking in saying, "What do you have in here that we don't know anything about?" And they're just on the hunt. You could just see it. And just happened to be at the counter pitching some rye whiskeys. I said, "I got some rye whiskeys you probably don't know."
Sure.
And I'll tell you what, I was working with our local distributor rep, and he turned to me and said, you have to go for this radio show. And I was like, but I got caught up in a conversation with them for 45, 50 minutes.
He still beat me here.
And it was but it was like, I could have gone all day with those guys, and their knowledge and what their questions were about who Sagamore was, our whiskeys, and all different sorts of things was fun. It's great. It's great to have that conversation with the consumer. And they were sponges. They just couldn't wait to hear more and learn more, and it was just fun and engaging.
Yeah, we have a group of about 4,400, and then another group of I don't know how, 7 something.
I have no idea.
700. So, and there's a lot of crossover, but let's just say there's a group of about 5,000 people within 100 miles, one side of Houston and the other. And we buy, I'd say, on average, this year we're going to hit, I think, 25 to 30 barrels. And what we have about to hit is an Armagnac that's 400 bottles, a Belmead barrel that's 140 bottles.
Any minute now.
A rum barrel. We bought a barrel of rum from Plantation that I cannot wait to get. It was finished in Teeling Irish whiskey barrels. It's awesome. But we've got about 7 picks, and then we're actually planning a trip in December to go do. It's not locked in yet, and I'm hoping by the time you see this, it's actually confirmed. But a Four Roses, a Boone County, and one more. It was one more. Copper. We're doing another Copper and Kings, but we're doing something different. Copper and Kings is a couple of things that are coming out that are wide release. And this is confirmed, that we're going to do a barrel pick of this wide release before the wide release. So they have something they're about to release wide, and we're going to go get a barrel of it before they blend all the rest, all of them together or whatever.
Wow.
So we do quite a bit.
I want to travel with you guys.
We have a lot of fun, and I've talked to Tim about Sagamore. I'm definitely I want more information. We've got like 30 projects lined up over the next 6 months, so it's kind of trying to coordinate everything. And,
sure.
And what we do is, instead of just partnering with one store, the city of Houston is the 4th largest city in the nation, and as far as like surface area goes, it's probably second.
Massive.
So what we do is we partner with a bunch of different retailers and treat it like our own product, and just allocate to each store a certain amount of bottles, and then they order from the distributor. Nothing sits in the warehouse; it's in and out, and then we pick it up from the store. It's a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah, it is.
And no one has to drive to 100 miles 2 ways just to pick up a bottle of something.
That's great.
So,
way to work together.
Well,
and get it done.
You bring more neat stuff here. The group grows. Everyone's happy, and then the culture changes. So it's been a great couple of years.
And it's never enough.
It's never enough.
Everyone's always complaining that we didn't get enough. The barrel was too short, and then people didn't get a chance to get any. And when's the next one coming? I don't know how you deal with.
Can you release
with all the inquiries?
Can you release? In the afternoon, mornings don't work. So we did, and then they were like, well, can you release on the weekends only, because some of us, and then the shift workers complain because they work the weekends, and there's never a winning solution. But
it's hard to please 5,000 people.
That's with 180 bottles.
Yeah, and I'm really bad at it, by the way. So, but we do make it work, and there's a lot of fun stuff coming. So I'm really kind of ryes are exploding right now, and this cast strength rye is. Maybe you can explain to me, because I don't actually know. Your barrel program, is there a barrel proof option, or is it the 100 proof or 93 proof, or?
You know what? We've done a few things. We're so new. We're still trying to figure out. And we're trying to make it where you guys can really put your thumbprint on it. And we've bounced around with a lot of different things. Originally we had potentially people that could even work with making their own blends of the high and the low.
Sure.
We were doing some of that for a while. And then we're bottling it at 95 proof, which isn't a proof that we offer with any of other products. So it really was something that nobody else had in the world. Now we're looking into 19. What the heck? We're a couple whiskeys in. We're going to try and get cast strength as an option now.
Hold on one second. I just want to tell you, I've had a lot of brands in here, and I always wait till the end after they've had a couple to go what's coming down the pipeline,
Yeah,
what's
totally,
new,
right.
And no one will tell me. And I didn't even prompt you, and you kind of broke it out. So.
I just looked at it as like, I knew this question was coming. I'm sure they always got that question for you. No, we're excited. We're hearing like the demand. So we're looking at it as there's on and off premise in a sense. I think there's two ways to look at this. I mean, I think what we were doing as far as our barrel program for on-premise at 95 proof was ideal for them, because it really does make a fabulous cocktail, and it's still great whiskey neat too.
Sure. At
95 proof. Getting into cast strength on-premise, gets to be, maybe a little bit more challenging. But then off-premise, I think when they start wanting to get into the cocktails and the price point of the product and so
Correct.
forth,
that's why Fistful of Bourbon was marked down to 24, as it was originally slated at $28.99. But the feedback from the bar community was that's you basically price yourself out of being a well whiskey.
Yeah.
So they marked it down to $24.99 to get it into as many bars as possible to be a well or a cocktail.
It can be a $6 or $7 shot at the bar.
Sure. I'm
We're not looking to do that to ourselves, but we want them to be able to afford, like, it's a beautiful Manhattan.
You want it to be flexible.
Yeah, $14-15 would be amazing, but like if you start getting cask strength, you start seeing these prices of $18-21, and that's a tough. I mean, I like a good drink, and I'm only going to have one or two, but and the consumer sometimes actually is a little intimidated too by some of those if they're out and about, and driving. So
sure, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse on Copper and Kings, but one thing I was talking to Joe earlier today. One thing I love about their program that I wish I could see more from smaller brands. I say smaller brands, I mean brands that are not Sazerac.
Yeah.
These big corporate structures are very rigid with their flexibility. Like I found out today that you don't have an option with Four Roses anymore in Texas to be 100 proof. They're only offering cask strength offerings.
Well, they make more money off of that, right? Because it's like, what, $35 or $40 versus $65?
From what I understand is it's not Four Roses is doing, it's the distributor. The distributor, a lot of these brands who do barrel programs don't put different barcodes from the private barrel selection to the standard offering.
I figured it was something along those lines where it's just logistics.
A lot of stuff gets lost in the warehouse. That's why you'll see the Whiskey Lodge Eagle Rare Pick in a liquor store down in Pearland when it was only supposed to go to Tony K's and
or the Bourbon Hounds Russell's Pick lens and specs.
Because they have the exact same SKU as their standard shelf item, and so you rely on these massive distributors to be able to keep up with nuanced situations, and they're a factory in and out. That's all they deal with. So Four Roses' SKUs for their cask strength is different because they don't have a cask strength option for their standard shelf item, but their 100 proof wasn't, and it was too confusing and causing a lot of headaches.
Yeah,
so
I could see that.
They got rid of it. But Joe at Copper and Kings, you could literally do whatever you want. If they've got 40 different things aging in the warehouse and you want a barrel of it, it's available, and you get to proof it at whatever you want. TTB label no longer requires changes in submissions when you change proof.
Right.
So you could go pick out a barrel, you could water it down to whatever you want, and then bottle it from there. I don't know how pricing works or how they're skewing it, but the flexibility has been pretty awesome.
That's easy enough to figure out. I mean, I think that's what we were trying to go for. We were trying to enjoy being small and being flexible. That's why we're letting people have fun with the different blends. And
that's awesome.
That's
really awesome.
It's nice, isn't it?
I keep coming back to it and forgetting how great it was 30 seconds ago.
Russell's Reserve Rye.
Which is not. It's well respected, but it's not talked about as much because everyone knows it's awesome.
It's like it's easy to drink. It's got all the spice and the herbal, and it's got orange.
It does have some orange.
Getting a lot of orange.
And a little dark chocolate on the mouth feel. It's a good whiskey, that's for sure.
It's very good. I think you guys definitely hit it out of the park.
But we have a lot of people ask for cask strength barrel programs, and so we weren't offering that before, and we're trying to get to it ASAP. And for us, it is a little bit of the logistics, and unfortunately, with making sure how quickly can you get it registered with the distributor in the state.
Sure.
And get in the system before you start. You can't sell something that doesn't exist in a sense, and then packaging, making sure if someone had a 95 proof, say a retailer wanted to buy a 95 proof and a cask strength, what's the packaging look like? So people really know the differences. And so for us, we're trying to scramble as fast as we can.
It's a lot of logistics, but I think it'll be a win for you guys, an easy win because it's delicious.
Just got to be done right. So we'll work on that. For sure, and that's a goal of ours.
I take it your proof varies by batch with the cask strength.
Yeah, it bounces around. I've seen it from 111 to 114. We typically, we barrel at 120. We typically come out of the barrel around 115 to 117. And so, like I say, we'll do a splash of spring water just to kind of open it up a little bit. And so, we average probably about 113 in the bottle.
We only use spring water at the social, and I was wondering if people were going to complain that it's not distilled water because they tell you that you got to have like a pure. I think spring water is better. One, you stay hydrated. It's easier to hydrate on spring water than it is you don't hydrate on distilled water. which has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But as soon as you said you kind of splashed the spring water.
Our whole story kind of focused around the spring house built, and you see on the back of our bottle, built in 1909 by a guy named Charles A. Councilman, who got a grant from the University of Maryland to study limestone spring water and its effects on agriculture.
Sure.
You open up the door, there's no floor in the room, in the building or anything. It's just a room full of limestone spring water coming up out of the earth. And so we go up to the farm twice a week, basically, to get the spring water for our proofing.
Well, I'm definitely going to go buy some of this cast strength. I really, really like it.
Yeah, and if you're in Houston, I know we've got a lot of listeners in Houston. I know Rice carries it. Ryan's, basically anything that gets talked about on HBS, Ryan's up in Spring will carry it. Sagamore's in a few places. I'll talk to Tim to get kind of an updated list, but that cast strength is it's really good. It's really impactfutful. Like, it really makes an impression.
I really want
glad
to
you
do
guys like it.
I'm going to do some side by sides with some other ones.
Compared,
because in my mind, I'm putting it up against these other ones, but until you really do it,
blind. Yeah, you got to do it blind too.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah, that port wood. So tell me, let's talk about that. We've got one last port finish.
So port finish, like I said, we'd like to do something fun every year, kind of show off the talent of the team a little bit as far as innovation and just kind of having fun and show the versatility of rye whiskey. We think rye is extremely versatile, and especially kind of between the two blends. And so the team did a great job of sourcing some port barrels, some from a local vineyard in Maryland called Bordy, and then some from Europe as well. And then we put our blend together and laid them down in these port barrels for an additional 6-7 months, and then for a nice finishing, and then obviously bottled it. And for me,
so this is the standard expression, but aged for 6-7 more months in the port finish.
Exactly.
At 101 proof as well.
So and then we bottle at 101. Yeah. So we, one of the things that we notice is sometimes port finishes taste like port at the end. I mean, we do want the hints of the port. We would like that dark fruit, the plum, the dark cherry
notes.
Yeah, absolutely, the allspice. But we also like the 101 proof, so it's still a whiskey, if you will. And that's what I think the team did a great job of is getting that balance of still having some nice whiskey spice. I mean, I think it's got a nice kind of bold, beautiful kind of peppery spice to it as well, but also has really some nice dark fruit. The color on it is absolutely spectacular, in my opinion. I love the color of it. I love nosing this one. I can spend an hour just kind of nosing
just comparing it to the barrel strength. It's got a little more red in it.
Yeah.
Deeper.
Absolutely.
It's you mentioned dark cherry notes. It's definitely really heavy on the cherry notes to me.
Yeah. Got some cinnamon in there still. But I agree. Starfruit, like it's really nice. And this is, we typically say one and done. You never know, it could reemerge in a few years from now, but you don't see many port finish rye whiskeys. I think, I want to say Texas got 10 cases.
That was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
I don't know why I thought the port was a regular shelf item, a regular
you can tell
core
by
expression.
The label. When we change it up a little bit from that chevron look to that front-facing, kind of give it a chance to actually tell a little bit of the story.
Sure.
Because it's not around long, and we're not around. It really kind of ends up falling underneath the Sagamore Reserve series. And the Sagamore Reserve series is kind of an interesting place of R&D for us. And we have, like so many distilleries out there, we have so many barrels laid down. We've done Moscatel, we've done Cognac, we've played around with Armagnac, got a lot of fun different things. In the spring, it'll be a Calvados. And so it's really fun to do finishes. I mean, we're hyper-focused on rye, but we still like to show a little bit of innovation and R&D kind of put to work. But we don't really have too much else in the works other than rye whiskey. But we have multiple mash bills, so there's a lot of things that we can do with multiple mash bills of rye whiskey.
I would, if it ever comes up, I'd be happy to take a barrel of this. Sell it by the barrel.
I really like the artwork. The port barrel cave.
Yeah, the team does a really great job of that. They got their hands full. So every time you come out with this finishing, like, what's your art that goes with it? And then there's things that you can't, like, they did a great job of playing around with, Calvados, you got the apples and so forth, but that's misleading by the TTD.
Sure.
You know, they got their hands full on what you can really do with artwork, and they do a phenomenal job. Shout out to Renee and Kate for that, for sure. Kate did that one, and she does an amazing job. But Renee was really kind of the thought process behind these labels too. And so we just got a super talented team.
They've got a very Red Dead Redemption 2 look to them, very country, you know, in a good way, like that traditional American Little House on the Prairie look to the sketches on the bag.
Kind of rustic. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone can see those.
It's tough to see. On our website, Sagamore Spirit, you
can check it out.
Really
or go buy a bottle and you'll be able to see it up front. Yeah.
Enjoy a dram. I really get to know the bottle. That's for sure. The bottle is kind of inspired by a lot of great distillers before us. There was one in Baltimore, Walters. It was 6-sided and embossed down the side in 1890. And then the Sagamore Farm was started by the Vanderbilt family in 1925, and their logo was 3 diamonds. So that's kind of where we got our 3-diamond logo. And so we kind of have this now 6-sided bottle. We kind of got inspired by the Walters and from the Vanderbilt logo that the jockeys used to wear on their silks, and actually they still wear on their silks at Sagamore Racing today. The farm has about 65 thoroughbreds that train on it regularly. And so kind of our nod to the folks before us, old meets new, and kind of pick up and take it from there.
Yeah, where you guys came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's delicious. I really enjoyed the Portwood. It was great with a cigar the other night, but it's definitely made more of an impression with a clean mouth.
Yeah, and no crest. You've already flushed that out now.
Colgate. Don't get it confused. So what's you said besides the barrel strength program, what's next on the horizon now that you guys are going to be done with the Portwood? Do we know what's coming next? Have you guys?
Yeah. So
the Calvados.
The Calvados will be spring of 19.
Okay.
And so we put that in the barrel, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I want to say back in January.
Okay. Wow.
So
it's a long finish.
Yeah. So it's a long finish, and they barrels range from about 40 to 50 gallons too. They're a little bit smaller barrels.
That's a good question. Do you guys mature? What size barrels do you guys mature in?
53.
Okay, so standard.
Yeah.
What do you know what the allocation is going to be, or what? First of all, on the bottle it says bottle number 21 something. Do you know what size of batch it's going to be? Like
the Calvados?
Yeah.
It's always a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say that it'll be about maybe 500 cases for the 33
6 packs
markets.
or 12s?
6 packs for the 33 markets.
And what's the? I don't know if we covered this. What's the SRP on the port?
That one is $69.99.
Okay, so about the same as a double oak.
Yeah, so we try to do a little bit of line pricing when we can.
Well, they're all pretty. I mean, they're all within what, $30 of each other. That's
it basically range from $39 to $69. So, and the folks that do barrel select programs with us, their barrel select are usually about $49.
Okay, so a private barrel is usually around $50. Yeah,
then for the 95 proof.
I wonder. The port is really prominent. Like you can really get the sweet Christmas notes. I wonder what Calvados what kind of an impact that's going to make on that rye. I mean, that's what One Whistle Pigs.
That latest one?
No, I think it was the cognac barrels before. Mauve is the Calvados, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I bet it would be really great, those apple notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Baked apple.
Mm-hmm. And that price point, I mean, that's totally reasonable.
Oh yeah, compared to the $500 bottle.
yeah, $500 Spirit of Mauve versus
which, by the way, we tasted it. It's fantastic. I'm very happy with it.
It's a really great $100 or maybe even $200 bottle of rye, but 500s. This one's totally worth the money though.
I need to talk to Tim and find out what stores in Houston. I think he went and saw Nathan last week. I think he was on his way up to see Nathan. So I know if Ryan's has it, the Blind Pig has it, Rice has it. We've got to get some on the south side. And then NASA has it for sure. So we've got a nice little footprint in Houston, covering kind of the four corners, so to speak. I need to get my hands on a bottle. Mm-hmm. More bottles, because those are my bottles.
Yeah, Texas, I mean,
if we only got 10 cases, then
yeah.
Get on that.
And
Time
it's not
is
a
of
bad
the
price.
essence.
Yeah, no, get on it while you can. We're really proud of it. like I said, everything we have is basically gotten anywhere from, I think the 83's got gold. Everything else has gotten double gold. We've never put the port, obviously we only bottled that a few weeks ago into a spirit competition, but it's something we're really proud of.
Has it been graded yet?
No.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm really enjoying the port. I'd be interested to see how it performs.
It's fun. I think it balances really well with the rye whiskey.
Fred Minnick blind.
Yeah. I'd love to. I'm game.
Have you ever met Fred?
I have.
Yeah, Fred's a nice guy. I always kind of want to mess with him a little bit and surprise blind him with some things that just to see, you know. He just gave old Ezra the new barrel proof old Ezra.
Speaking of which, that's in Houston now.
I saw it. Yeah. $50. Were you the one that was saying you couldn't justify the? You noticed the price increase from 101 to.
I was in that conversation, but I wasn't the one saying it was unreasonable.
I mean, I think it's smart. And I, as a consumer, even if it doesn't translate, the slide up the scale pricing wise from 101 proof to cask strength. If the 101 is $20 and cask strength, which is what, not even 120, 118 or something, and it's $40, it's still not a bad price. Yeah. 7-year-old Kentucky bourbon at cask strength for $40. Why are you complaining?
8% less water in it. I mean,
it's not a bad. And if anything, it just proves that old Ezra 101 was underpriced. 7-year-old whiskey.
I saw it in some markets for like $13.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Gosh. So they're doing away with it. So I've been clearing every store in Houston. Every time I see them on the shelf, I grab
it's
one.
You're the one doing it.
Well, once they're out of that'll leave you with nothing but to clear out Sagamore port.
Yeah, that's right. Sagamore
port. Why you can.
I know you guys were using a dump glass, but like the quitters you are. But this is I'm enjoying every drop of this. I will tell you, thank you so much for coming on. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know that you are busy being president and traveling all over the U.S., but anytime you come to Houston, and if you can be here in March to see the Whiskey Festival, the Whiskey Social, I'd love for you to be here.
I'd love to be here.
I'll talk to Tim. Yeah. We can do whatever you want. I know Tim's got a table. We can give you guys a classroom and put you in front of 50 people and let you have that 101. We can also do what I like to call the PR tour. So if you want to set up, let's say you come in the week before the event and you want to do a dinner at an account or tasting at Specs or whatever, Total Wine, and that way you get the most impact while you're here and just do tasting, whatever you want.
Thank you very, very much for having me. I am honored to be here. It's for a new small brand like this, especially new to Texas, to come out here and tell a story a little bit about Sagamore Spirit and Maryland Rye Whiskey is an unbelievable opportunity. So thank you very much for that. And I would definitely take you up on that because that just gives us more opportunity to go out there and shake some hands and really kind of consider ourselves a handshake brand. So anybody that's willing to listen to us or try our spirits and hear a little bit about it and get to know each other, we'll take any opportunity like that we can get. And Tim speaks very highly of everything that you guys are doing, the Houston market, and of course the Texas market as a whole. But we're excited to be here, and Texas has been really good to us already.
Sure. Excellent. Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks.
We'll talk soon.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Shawn, always a pleasure, buddy.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
To an empty glass.